Welcome, welcome. It's so great to see you here. Please put your name, city, and state in the chat box along with the name of your favorite legume. That is beans, lentils, or split peas. We're so glad to see you here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your interest. Welcome. Heather from Illinois loves black beans. Miguel likes pinto beans. I see several people from Illinois. That's great. Sue from St. Regis Falls in New York loves split peas. And we have Elizabeth from Missouri who said vegetarian. I'm guessing you mean the vegetarian baked beans, which are so delicious. There's many more. I cannot possibly read them all, but welcome Mary from Fort Anne, New York, who loves kidney beans. That's kidney beans and black beans are the commercial bean crops in New York State. And although we help schools around the country, we are located in New York State. And using dry beans like kidney beans, black beans, chickpeas as a farm to school, if they're grown in your state, is really a great way to enhance your farm to school program. Ooh, black-eyed peas. I see black-eyed peas here. Lots of kidney beans and black beans, pinto beans, split peas. Oh, it's great to see this. Okay, so if you have just come on, please put your name, city, and state in the chat box along with your favorite legume, and we will get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Hamlin, and I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Coalition for Healthy School Food. We are celebrating our 20th anniversary, our 20th year of helping schools introduce plant-based vegan entrees, or as you know it, the meat alternate component. In addition, we provide education about the benefits of eating more plant foods to the whole school community. So not just the students, but their families and all the adults who work in the school buildings. And that, of course, includes school food service personnel. And when we say we educate about the benefits of eating plant-based foods, not just to our health, but also to the environment, in relation to climate change, equity, and other social justice issues. We're so excited to have you here for the second of 8 monthly webinars designed specifically for school food service directors and cooks. The webinar runs for an hour. In the future, you are welcome to share the link with any of your staff so they can attend too, though our focus is for the school food service directors and cooks. This webinar will be recorded. It is being recorded and placed on our YouTube channel. Our next monthly newsletter will include the link in case you want to share it with your staff. The second half of this webinar will be devoted to questions and answers with Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn and Food Service Director Annette Marchbanks from Liverpool, New York, here with us live. We welcome questions, be they about heart disease, the linkage between what we eat and our health, or about strategies for encouraging students to eat more plants. To pose a question, please make sure to enter it into the question and answer box, not the chat. Okay, the chat's over to the side, but there's a box that says Q&A down at the bottom. So please put any questions you have, and you can type them in as you're listening to the webinar so you don't forget. First, I want to start out with an anonymous poll, and all of our polls are anonymous, so we won't know who's answering what. So we want you to respond to the question, is heart disease reversible? And I'll give you just a minute to answer that question. That's great. About 56% know that it is reversible. That's great. 19% don't know, and 25%, well, 19% say no, it's not reversible, and then 25% say they don't know. So how do we define plant-based? The Coalition for Healthy School Food defines plant-based as vegan, but it has been defined differently by various entities, especially food companies, food service workers, and chefs. So for our purposes, when we say plant-based, we mean vegan. but we also mean healthy vegan because vegan food is not necessarily healthy. And some people are really not clear about what vegan means. So a simple definition is that vegan food does not contain anything that comes from an animal. No red meat, poultry, fish, seafood, dairy products, eggs, honey, lard, gelatin, whey, casein, etc. A vegan diet means 100% comes from vegetables, grains, fruits, nuts, and seeds, and mushrooms, which aren't technically a plant or an animal, but mushrooms are included in a vegan diet. So there's been a lot of confusion about these terms generally. So if you have felt confused about this in the past, we hope this helps. Of course, we do not want to make perfect the enemy of the good. Our overarching goal is to improve the healthfulness of the food served in schools by increasing the proportion of food that is plant-based and made from scratch, though we are always excited for healthy manufactured items as well. Before I introduce the video with Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, I'd like to do a second poll to find out what you know about the causes of heart disease, which is one of the areas of clinical research he is best known for. And I'll give you just a minute for this. All right, this is great. 94% of you know that unhealthy diet is the main cause of heart disease, and 59% believe that it's genetic factors. And we're going to hear from Dr. Esselstyn about those issues. And so we'll find out what the right answer is when we listen to his video. Great. Okay, so now I'd like you to join me in welcoming Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn Jr., a distinguished physician and author renowned for his groundbreaking work in cardiovascular health. At almost 91, he's turning 91 next month, Dr. Esselstyn continues to direct the Cardiovascular Prevention and Reversal Program at the Cleveland Clinic Wellness Institute. He's the author of the bestseller, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. His research and advocacy for a whole food, plant-based diet have transformed the lives of many, offering hope for preventing and reversing heart disease, and we're honored to have him share his insights with us today. Dr. Esselstyn will join us live to take your questions later in the webinar. Last week, I had the pleasure of sitting down with him to discuss what his research has revealed about the connection between heart disease and what we eat. The next segment is just about 9 minutes, so let's watch the video now.
Very interesting when we think about how often heart disease occurs, but the striking thing is that there are multiple cultures on the planet Earth where cardiovascular disease is non-existent. And when we really begin to investigate this carefully, why it is that those societies are free of heart disease, as opposed to the epidemic of heart disease in Western civilization, it is because of the food. And many people will try to say it's the genes that causes heart disease, but interesting, when you when you look at these nations where heart disease is non-existent, and you would say it's because of the genes there. But what happens when the people from Central Africa, the Tarahumara, or rural China, the Papua Highlands and New Guinea, when they migrate to this country and they start eating our Western diet, the genes theory falls totally apart because they now begin to develop heart disease. You know, a recent study of young women and men between the ages of 17 and 34 who had died of accidents, homicides, and suicides. Early coronary artery disease was found to be ubiquitous. So it's never too young to start to have these people eat correctly and know the foods that are going to injure them. The question often comes up is, can you reverse heart disease? And actually, it's been proven on a number of occasions. Dr. Kempner from Duke did that years ago. Dr. Dean Ornish did it. Our own studies have shown that indeed, when you take patients who are seriously ill with heart disease. And by this, I mean they've got plaque blockages in the coronary arteries. And when they totally commit and are following whole food, plant-based nutrition 100%, not only can you halt disease, but you can actually eventually see disease reversal. Now, sometimes that may occur as early as 3 weeks. Other times, to completely reverse it may take 2.5 years. But the thing that is so exciting is how profoundly rapidly this begins to take effect. And the only way to have a patient make this lifestyle change is to show the patient respect. The only way that I know to show a patient respect is to give them our time. And during that time, if they're going to make this change, they have to understand the causation of the illness. And that is, this is a little bit scientific, but it's the endothelial cells that line the innermost part of our artery that produce a magic molecule of gas called nitric oxide. And it is nitric oxide that is responsible for the salvation, preservation, and protection of all of our blood vessels because of the remarkable functions that it possesses. So you can see that if somebody for decades and decades and decades is eating the horrible Western diet, causing all this inflammation and injury to the endothelial cell, then you rapidly begin to decrease the amount of nitric oxide that is available to protect you. And finally, the nitric oxide levels get low enough that you begin to develop blockages and plaque in your coronary arteries. And that, therefore, obviously, the reverse is the same. What you try to do with these patients who have heart disease, get them to eat in a way that they can restore their nitric oxide. Now, the other wrinkle in reversing heart disease with whole food, plant-based nutrition, it has got to be 100%. For instance, the other days, somebody called me and said, Dr. Esselstyn, you'd be proud of me. I'm following your program 85%. My reply was, that's not my program. Just think of it this way. That means if you're eating correctly 85% of the time, that means that 15% of every single day, 365 days, you were further trying to injure your endothelial production of nitric oxide. That is absolutely so terribly important to be, you have to have these patients understand that it's going to have to be 100%. Well, there's no question that the introductions of the statins in 1987 really added an additional dimension to try to help patients. It has nothing to do whatsoever with the causation of the illness. And there are statins side effects that we have to think about. For instance, we can have severe muscle cramps. It can injure the liver. It can give you diabetes and give you brain fog. So we have to remember that statins are a drug. They have nothing to do with the causation of the illness. And I think they should be taken and prescribed with discretion. For breakfast, I like old-fashioned Quaker oats, a plant-strong milk, some raisins, a few bananas, and I like all 4 of the berries, that is to say, blackberries, blueberries, strawberries, and raspberries. And that gives me a really profound, not only delicious, but terribly nutritious bit of food. For lunch, it's usually an open sandwich with some hummus and sprouts and maybe some arugula. Sometimes we have a portobello. You use the portobello as a patty and make yourself a similar sandwich for lunch. Or maybe during the wintertime, it may be one of these delicious vegetable soups. Supper time, my favorite is beans and rice. When we look at children as young as age 12, who sadly have lost their life to some illness or car accident or trauma, at autopsy, already at that tender age of 12, you're beginning to see these fatty streaks, which are the initiation of heart disease, plaque, and blockages. So it really is quite apparent that for somebody at age 12 already have established early plaque disease in their arteries, think of it that the foods that they've been eating prior to the age of 12 has contributed to the formation of this early heart disease. The whole food plant-based nutrition that we ask patients to follow includes the following. We want them to have whole grains, cereals, pasta, bread, rolls, and bagels, 101 different types of legumes, lentils, and beans, all these marvelous red, yellow, and green leafy vegetables, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, and some fruit. In front of us, really, I see coming an absolute seismic revolution in health. And the seismic revolution in health is never going to come about from another drug, stent, or bypass. But the seismic revolution in health will come about when we in the profession have the will and the grit and the determination to share with the public what is the lifestyle, and most specifically, what is the nutritional literacy that is going to empower them to absolutely annihilate chronic illness. I want to say it's such a privilege to speak to you as the service directors who have taken time to come to this conference and think of the opportunity that really is before you with the nutritional foundation that you can provide.
We're so grateful to Dr. Esselstyn. Thank you so much, Dr. Esselstyn. This is really great information, really helpful. And now that you've seen the recording, I'd like to gauge your reactions as to what you heard through another anonymous poll. I think I'll say what we have now, which is that 88% of you have learned something new about heart disease. That's great. 12% did not know that heart disease is caused primarily by diet. 6% suffer from cardiovascular disease and am already implementing some of these recommendations. And 9% have cardiovascular disease and are interested in learning more and implementing some of these things. And so I think that's, and then, you know, a small percentage don't really want to change. So thank you. Thank you for your answers to that. Okay. Now, we're going to move on to the recipe of the month, which is pasta fagioli. Before we show the video of it being prepared in a school kitchen, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Annette Marchbanks and Chef Kerry Truax, along with their amazing food service team who welcomed us in to film the preparation of this recipe. And again, don't forget to put your questions in the question and answer box below. This is your chance to get questions answered by Annette, who's the food service director in Liverpool, New York, and Dr. Esselstyn, who, like, if it wasn't clear, he is a pioneer in heart disease reversal research. There's you know, been several studies now. He was one of the first. And so he is actually the person who did the research that proved it, that was then published in the major medical journals. And they did the research, but then they did a 20-year follow-up. So here goes the video. Thanks.
So we have almost 7,000 students in the Liverpool district. We serve over 4,300 for lunch daily and probably about 3,000 every day for breakfast. We have a diverse group of students from all different cultures. So we have to find foods that appeal to a whole bunch of different students at one time. Every day we do offer 2 vegetables every day and a fruit, so kids can have a variety, right? If they don't like one vegetable, they might like the other. Not all districts do that, but we do that here. We also do raw fruits and vegetables, not just cooked, in case textures are an issue. At the high school, we've been trying to implement totally plant-based foods. So one of the things that we do there is we make a hummus plate, so it's strictly vegan, staff vegetarian, it's vegan. So we have hummus, it comes with a flatbread, different vegetables, and it comes with fruit as well. so students could just grab and go that. We're looking at the possibility of putting in total vegan meals at the elementary and middle school level. The issue is, do we have kitchens that can accommodate that, and do we have enough student desire to get that over the main meal?
My name is Kerry Truax, and I am the cook one at Liverpool Central School District. I've been a cook here for 5 years now, and we like at Liverpool Central School District to cook as many things as we can from scratch. So we'd like to give the kids a lot of options of fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, all the colors of the rainbow we feel are wonderful. So today we'll be making pasta fagioli, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to make a healthy meal for your students. So we're going to start with cutting up vegetables. I'm going to come over here to our rubber cool. And that looks about right. We had to chop that up as well. So there's an onion. You're cutting your kale. If it's staying in-house, you would cut and devein the kale, chop it, and then add it at the very end so that it's not overcooked. If you are sending it to another school, out to another school, what you would do is the kale would be sent to that school. They would devein it and chop it and cut it and everything and add it at the end of their reheating process. And we have a big kettle, so I'm going to take everything and I'm going to take the oil. You have 2 cups of vegetable oil because you're going to cook your carrots and your garlic and the onions until they're softened. So it says 2 cups of oil. So I want to make sure this is here before I do it. Okay, so 1, 2 cups of oil. So I'm going to start with the onions. And that'll be put in. And I just take all that and just dump it right in there, right into the kettle. Get all that out of there. I'm going to take a garlic, and it is a cup of minced garlic. So you can either mince your own garlic or we have the minced garlic. So we're going to use that. So I'm going to put that in there as well. And mix all the ingredients up in my little pan. Alright, so it is important to mix everything and to stir to make sure all the ingredients are all in there. Let me come over here and check and see how our things are coming and softening. They need to be softened. And stir. And while I'm doing this, I would be putting the pasta in to cook. Everybody usually knows how to cook the pasta, but yes, this is the step where you would put your pasta in. So, and try not to overcook it because it will keep cooking as you put it in the soup. So, I'm going to say we need a little bit longer for the carrots, but I can add my seasonings. So that's our pepper, our basil, and our oregano. And then we'll incorporate this in. So then it's starting to smell really good, huh? I wish you could smell. I'm going to add the crushed tomatoes next. These are our crushed tomatoes. Our sauce, tomato sauce. We're going to add that as well. But I do know that our onions, our New York State onions, and our carrots came from New York State. So, and in our school we have a New York State Wednesday. Since we are in New York State, the 3rd Wednesday of every month, and we always feature a fruit, vegetable from New York State. And I'm going to be mixing this. So the next thing we're going to be adding is our, they're Great Northern beans. These are not local beans, but if you do have somewhere in your state that has dry beans, it would be great if you could add that to your farm to school. These are a great meat alternative, and they meet all the requirements for protein, and they're high in fiber. So these are wonderful, wonderful things for everyone, not just the students to eat. So I'm going to bring this over. They're drained, and these are 4 number 10 cans. That's what we had. That's what it called for. So I'm going to add these into our kettle. Just mix them around a little bit. I don't want to smush them. After those simmer, that is when, if it's in-house, just beforehand you would add your kale, and then you would add your pasta, and then mix that all together, and then you would serve it, you know, bring it to temp obviously, and then you would serve it to the students. If it's out of house, you know, and you're having this pasta fagioli sent to other schools, that's where they would heat, and then they would add the kale and their pasta. I've always loved children, and I started in this work as a food service helper when my son was in school. He was young and I could work, and then I just found it so fulfilling and rewarding that to see the kids, they would pick things, they would look at it, and just to get them to try new things and say, oh, they call me Mrs. T sometimes, or Miss Kerry. They'll say, Miss Kerry, I tried the broccoli and I loved it, or I tried something that I wouldn't have tried. So that just kind of gets me. And now this is, you can see where it's simmered and it's getting nice incorporated, and it smells so yummy, I think. So now we just wait on our pasta, and that's when we'll put our kale in. But this looks just about ready. Let's try. Does it need anything? Ah.
I think it's good as is.
I can taste the garlic. Yep, you can taste the onion.
Very flavorful.
Mm-hmm. Very flavorful. I like it.
It's really good. I don't think it needs anything.
I'm really excited to have the kids taste this today. I think they'll really like it.
Okay, Amy, did you want to say something about the next video coming up?
Yes, this next video is a student taste testing, and the students weren't prepped in any way for this. It's just they came to the cafeteria and we introduced it to them just as you see. And so let's watch.
Liverpool Elementary, we have a quite diverse group of students. We have students for all different socioeconomic levels, as well as we are a building that has some special needs programs, as well as ENL students here. I was excited to get to try this myself as well. I am a vegetarian, and I noticed that there aren't always options on the menu for vegetarians. I really enjoyed the menu option today. It's not what you think of when you think of really school lunch. It had a lot of different flavors in it.
Very cool.
Buddy, how are you today? We are here to try some new food. So a lot of times when school cafeterias serve food, they like to sometimes try new things. And so we want to try this and get your feedback about it, okay? And this is Miss Marchbanks, and do you know who she is? Have you ever seen her before? No. She is in charge. She's the top person in charge of all food for all of Liverpool School District. For all the schools in Liverpool.
This smells good. Well, that smells good. I think it's with hamburger. I think it's pasta salad.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I back on?
This is good.
I can't eat it because it's too hot.
It has a good flavor and texture.
What I like about it is with the beans in it, if you bite down on a bean with it, it gives it all like a nice like textury flavor. Yeah. Does that make sense? And what I like about it is you don't get too many foods that are like that. So it's interesting once you actually get to like try it. I think it would taste good with like spices on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like chili.
More chili, more chili.
Tastes good, so like I would give it 8.5 out of 10.
I like the flavor and the texture. It has a really good flavor.
It's very good. I like how it has like the crunch to it. It is very healthy. So that's why I really like it.
I love it. It's a great dish. It's healthy, like I said, and it's just completely delicious.
Did you notice anything about the food that you thought was different? What did you notice?
It's like pasta. It has like more ingredients that like we had in lunch. That's what I really like about it.
And what I noticed is while I'm looking through, it's got kale, it's got carrots,
It got
onions,
tomatoes.
it's got everything. It's healthy. It's healthy.
The other thing about this that's different is it's made all from plants. It's all plant food. Vegan. It is vegan, that's right. That's right, it's vegan. So, and does anybody here know why maybe eating more plant foods would be a good idea? Who knows why? Yes?
Because the plants are healthy and they come from the ground.
That's right, plants are healthy and they come from the ground.
It helps our world so that we don't have to keep killing animals.
That's true.
Yeah, if we get
Yes?
Gives us more nutrients.
More nutrients, that's great, yes?
it may contain like vitamins and protein in it, so this for our bodies.
That's, interesting thing. People worry about protein, but plants have all the protein we need. What these are is, they show most of the ingredients that are in the food. So you can see what it looks like on the front, but then a picture of what does it look like when it grows, and some interesting facts about each food. So you can look at the front and the back. So if you want to come over here and look.
Red.
But sometimes it's purple and white. Do you have any vegetables?
There's basil in this.
There was basil?
Eat them out.
I love basil.
Oh wait, there was
Let go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love garlic.
I love garlic. Okay.
Yeah, it's only good on something.
These are good food.
Big question. What type of sauce is in here?
Why they
So, guys, I want to share one other thing with you while you're looking at the cards, which is that, so we all kind of got the idea that this was very, very healthy, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's another thing about foods that come from plants that's really important to know about. And that is that, because who cares about climate change? Who's concerned about climate change? Are you concerned about climate change?
That's what I was
So, the more foods that we eat from plants, the better for the climate. Like if you did everything else, like reusable water bottle, turn off the lights, turn off the water while you're brushing your teeth, all of that stuff is great. But guess what? Just eating one less hamburger a week and eating something like this instead will do more than all those other things combined. So every time you eat a food that comes from plants, especially when you're eating them instead of meat or cheese, then that is helping the climate, the more plant foods you eat.
All right, let us know what you think of your pasta.
So today's tasting, we tasted the pasta fagioli, which had pasta and beans and different vegetables, and it's surprising. I heard the students say that they don't get vegetables every day, and they get 2 vegetables every day. So that does surprise me. And it also surprised me that they liked the vegetables mixed in with their meal, which is really something I always think opposite with kids, especially young kids, right? They don't want food to touch. In fact, when I teach people how to serve, I always say don't let the food touch or mix in, right? Because it turns kids off. But it surprised me today that the students, at least the ones that we tested with, liked the pasta mixed with the beans, mixed with the vegetables, and actually were able to identify the vegetables in that pasta bean soup, which is a good thing. And then they ate it anyway. So today was an eye-opener. I thought it was a really successful dish and something that would be easy to incorporate into our environment.
Thank you so much to Annette and Kerry and her team. It was a really exciting day that we spent in Liverpool last week. Thank you very much. I would like you just in the chat, if you think you would be interested in making this recipe in your school, just say yes if you're interested or no if you're not. We just want to know the impact of seeing this kind of a video and does it inspire you to want to serve this? Please let us know. Okay. So now we are going to encourage you to continue putting any questions into the Q&A. And I want to welcome Dr. Esselstyn and Annette Marchbanks, Food Service Director from Liverpool, New York. If you can turn on your cameras and your audio, then I will ask you questions. And remind you to keep your answers relatively short because we have gone over. We've got about 16 minutes for the Q&A session. So the first question is for Dr. Esselstyn. How long does it take to reverse heart disease? If a person ate poorly for 20 years, how long will it take to correct that?
That's a fascinating question, Amy. And we've seen it reverse as early as 3 weeks, and other plaques that may take several years, but on the way, while it is reversing, there are tremendous benefits before you get perhaps completely reversed. But again, I should share with you that the young plaque in the patients who are younger, say in their late 30s, early 40s, that kind of plaque is usually made up of inflammation, fat, and cholesterol. And it will really respond very nicely when the patient makes a whole food, plant-based nutrition transition. On the other hand, the older patients in their late 60s and 70s, where the plaque may have been there for decades, it now perhaps is a little bit more made up of fibrosis and scar and calcification. That'll be a little bit tougher, but nevertheless, even those patients will enjoy the benefits.
One of the things that most impressed me from watching the movie Forks Over Knives, which your research is featured in, is that a lot of the patients in your study were actually people who were sort of like, this was their last chance. They were on, I think you used the word in the video, death's doorstep. They were the most challenging, and yet they reversed their heart disease, even though they were in their 70s and 80s even.
That's right. They were the walking dead.
Yeah. So, all right, great. Now this next question is for Annette. And Annette, I just wanted you to talk about the cost of such a recipe. Does it cost more, less, the same as your typical meat and cheese options?
Well, I think everybody knows that beans are relatively cheap, pasta is relatively cheap. Vegetables that you get in the whole form are relatively inexpensive. It always bothers me when people say that it's expensive to eat healthy. It's really not. You can get a bag of frozen vegetables still for $1 at Wegmans, so or $1.25. So actually this meal is a very economical meal. I'm Italian. We had pasta beans probably every Friday at my house, and I always told my mother it was a poverty meal, right? That's what people ate in Italy that were poor, and it's delicious. Right now, it's like a novelty. Everybody eats pasta fagioli or pasta beans, as I called it growing up. So, I think if a food service director cost this recipe out, they would find it very inexpensive compared to our more protein entrees that we put on the plate.
Thank you so much. Dr. Esselstyn, I didn't know heart disease is reversible. Why don't doctors tell us?
That's another good question. One of the problems is that I guess I should start at the beginning. We've known for perhaps over 100 years that there are multiple cultures on the planet Earth where cardiovascular disease is virtually non-existent. And that is such absolutely a black eye on the medical profession, because why haven't we taken that information about those cultures that are free of heart disease? Why haven't we taken that and broadly spread it out in this country? We're all hooked up on the drugs and stents and bypasses, not one of which have one single thing whatsoever to do with the causation of the disease. And I think it is coming. I'm much more excited what has happened in the last decade and a half. There seem to be more and more organizations that are committing themselves to plant-based. And I'm really, as I said earlier, I'm really thinking that we have before us really a seismic revolution in health that'll come as this develops. So you're absolutely right. It's almost embarrassing that we're not there yet.
Thank you. That's a great answer. Annette, how will you encourage kids to choose the plant-based option?
So I think to encourage children to take a plant-based option, you just put it in front of them, and that's the choice that they have, right? Just like when you're home, your parent serves you what you serve. I mean, I didn't make my kids another option if they didn't like what I serve. So I think it's putting forth what you like them to take. Now, we do have to have alternate choices, but that's not what we would showcase, right? You're going to showcase and put forth what you want those students to take. And then not encourage the other things, but I do have to have choices, but it's what you put forth that they're going to take first. Right? They eat with their eyes, you make the plate. We do offer versus serve. We plate up and the kids look at the plate, pick the one that looks the best for them. Right? So you're going to make that option look really good.
That's great. And just as a reminder to everyone, or if you don't know, we're a nonprofit. We have resources that are available for free, including serving line signs and flyers. You saw the feel good food cards in the video, which we can get to you. A PDF, you would have to have them printed. But so there's a lot of ways. And also when the adults come to the cafeteria and try it with the kids, the kids want to eat what the adults are eating.
Amy, I couldn't help. I couldn't help but look at those young children from Liverpool. I mean, they're absolutely cute as a button. But but I have to say, I think it would be fascinating if those children were given a 3-minute presentation of the causation of heart disease in terms they can understand. Then that 7 or 8-year-old child goes home and says, "Mommy, I learned today why Grandpa had his heart attack." And that sometimes really will resonate with them, and say, "Well, I like those vegetables so much, I think I'll eat more of those and protect myself." Just a cute little option.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, we know it's very interesting because I've been doing this work with school food for 20 years now. It's our 20-year anniversary of the Coalition for Healthy School Food. But before I was in this line of work, I ran environmental nonprofits and a tobacco control nonprofit. And when we went and we taught kids about the dangers of smoking and tobacco, they would go home and pester their parents to quit. And you know, McDonald's actually uses this as like the nag factor with kids. They have the playground so the parents will nag so the kids will nag their parents to take them there. Well, when we teach them about tobacco, they go home and they ask their parents not to smoke. And when we teach them about healthy eating, they go home. And we've had a lot of feedback from our educational programs that families have changed how they eat, which is exactly our goal. The more plant foods we can put in our diet, the better. And so that's a very good point, Dr. Esselstyn. Okay. All right, I'm looking for more questions here. Let's see. Are genetic heart conditions reversible, Dr. Esselstyn? If it's genetic, is it reversible?
Yeah, I know, but epigenetics can change it. For instance, let's suppose that you've got a family.
Explain that.
a family where everybody, grandfather, great-grandfather, aunts, uncles, all seem to be getting heart disease, all right? Now that obviously there's some people who are a little bit more genetically disposed. However, if anybody in that family who will eat 100% pure whole food plant-based nutrition, they're not going to get that heart disease.
And I think, you know, it's sort of like maybe the genetics predispose you, but what triggers it is the
Yeah.
behavior, right? The eating behavior or the smoking behavior.
Yeah, that's the epigenetics, yeah.
So, okay, that's a great answer. Annette, somebody is asking what information about nutrition your team receives. Like, how do you do trainings on nutrition? And if
So
you
I do.
provide it.
Yeah, I do training, and it's so funny. Last year, I challenged all my staff in January to go vegan. I was one of the first to do it, and it was a challenge that I must have gotten on my email probably from Whole Foods community. So I put that out there, and there was a half dozen of us that did this. And I think I shared the story with you that I went and got my physical in March after being 2 months on this diet and saw all of my cholesterol and all that dropped. And I'm an avid exerciser and I eat right all the time. So I push things out to them via an email. And then we just had our superintendent's conference day, and 2 of our videos were on wellness. One of them was on healthy eating patterns for you and your family, and the other was actually on walking, incorporating walking into your routine. So I don't look at my employees as just training on how to be a food service worker, right? If they're not a healthy food service worker and coming to work every day, then they're no good to me. So I incorporate nutrition, exercise, and mental wellness into all of my trainings, at least during our superintendent's conference day, and then I push things out through email.
That's great. Thank you so much. I think one of the things we have taught kids about is that how they eat can impact how they feel now, because if they eat really healthy plant foods, their immune system will be stronger, and then they're less likely to get colds and flus and things like that, and COVID. So it can affect them now, it can affect them in the future. But another way it can affect them now is food and mood. So we teach them about that as well, and how much your mood can be improved when you're eating a healthy diet instead of a diet that is full of animal products and hyper processed foods. I want to ask each one of you if you want to make any last statement to our guests. And Dr. Esselstyn, we'll start with you.
Well, I think there's an interesting lesson to be learned from World War II. If you looked at the death rates from heart attack and stroke in Norway between 1927 till about 1950, it's interesting that in 1927, heart attack, strokes, and death from heart disease were going up. 1930 going up, 1935 going up, 1939 into Norway come the Germans, and they take away their cattle, their sheep, their goats, their pigs, their chickens, their turkeys, they're gone. Suddenly now, these Norwegians are plant-based. And as the Germans come in, suddenly there's an absolute plummeting of deaths from heart attack and stroke, dropped way off until the death of Adolf Hitler. And after the death of Hitler, cessation of the European theater of war, back comes the cattle, back come the sheep, back come the dairy, back come the heart attack and stroke. It was written up by Dr. Stroff and Jampson in England's leading medical journal in 1951. A rather provocative sort of information that can come from population changes due to war.
That's great. Thank you so much. Annette, do you have any last thoughts?
I do. I would just like to invite any food service director that's on this webinar to collaborate, to reach out to me. I'm on Liverpool Central School District. Go right on there on my food service page. I steal ideas from other food service directors by looking at their menus. So if you have any questions or want to share anything you're doing, or certainly have any questions for me or want me to share what I've done, I'm happy to do that. I'm very easy to find. And I really do think it is a responsibility of the school nutrition director and the department to put forth our very best for our students because they learn from us, right? So what we show them is what they think is the correct way to eat. And I think that's a big responsibility that we have to consider and remember whenever we do our menus.
I'm embarrassed to say that I'm not sure I know where Liverpool is in relationship to Albany or Buffalo or New York City.
We're right outside of Syracuse, New York, so not very far
yeah.
from, yeah. We're a
But-
suburb of Syracuse.
Thank you.
You're
Well,
welcome.
I wanna thank everyone. I wanna thank Annette. I wanna thank Dr. Esselstyn. I wanna thank my colleague Rachel Bordoli. I wanna thank Bob Frankie from Rochester Lifestyle Medicine, and I wanna thank Rochester Lifestyle Medicine for being a co-sponsor of this webinar series. And I wanna thank all of our guests here, the food service directors. You can grab a picture of this slide with your camera or click on the link in the chat to get more information. This is Dr. Esselstyn in 2012 giving a TED Talk about heart disease reversal. It's a great talk and still completely valid today, even though it's now 12 years later since he made that. And we do have resources, we have recipes. And so feel free to reach out to me if you would like us to help you in any way. And we will have the link to this webinar in the December newsletter. And we are so grateful for everybody for helping make this possible. Thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.